opinion is Junkyard Dog was the most prominent black wrestler to ever lace a pair of boots.
Overcoming incredible odds, a young black wrestler rose from humble beginnings to become a generational superstar, achieving unimaginable heights in a sport dominated by white performers.
Yes, he did. He paved the way for all of us.
You feel you're going to be wearing the crown?
Just as sure as I'm black in the day, son of Mean Gene.
His charisma and, his personality is what got him to where he was, because he was a fan favorite no matter how you looked at it.
JYD was on top, selling it out. I mean, it was incredible. If you guys could just hear the crowd, they just love it, and couldn't nobody stop it.
He's invincible.
It ain't nothing else I like to do no better, and that's fighting.
I've seen the stars for him, because at that time there were no black superstars. Bill Watts, he saw dollars.
I saw his charisma and named him, gave him his music and did everything, and he was so dynamite.
The unlikely friendship between promoter Cowboy Bill Watts and the Junkyard Dog was tested when the Dog defects to the WWF.
I think Dog went because there was a better opportunity. There's more money, and then he was going to be a big star there.
But JYD's dreams of achieving superstar status in the big leagues fell short.
Vince McMahon didn't use him like Bill did. I wish he had, because he could have been one of the biggest stars in the WWE.
Yeah, it broke his spirit, because he went there to be that big hero again, and he didn't get it.
How can Vince McMahon put everything on JYD? Because you don't know if he's going to show up or not. You're not dependable, untrustworthy.
Dog forgot one thing. You can't do what the white man do and keep your job.
When you trying to become a star and on your way to stardom, you can fail at a lot of things, but to be successful as a wrestler, you have to put the time in. You have to become known by the fans. You have to be able to sell your product. You have to be able to have some dialogue. When Junkyard Dog came to Mid-South, he had dialogue, he had style, he had physical attributes. And these things turn into box office. These things turn into money. Sylvester Ritter was probably the greatest star to come through the state of Louisiana as they ever had in terms of wrestling.
He represents the people. They all love him.
Dog had a great following. He was universally loved. That gleam in his eye, his little smile that he had was infectious.
Man, he just got over. The people in Louisiana loved him.
And, he'd get to the ring, and he'd grab that top rope and lean back and shake his legs and his butt. And the people would just go wild.
I'm lacing up the boots, and the whole building's going, who that? Who that? Who that gonna beat the dog? Who that? Boom, boom, boom. Who that? I'm lacing up my boots going, holy smokes.
More than just a wrestler, Junkyard Dog is a hero to the working class, a beloved figure in the city of New Orleans who became a superstar to fans across the Southeast, transcending the sport to become an icon.
A Junkyard Dog, brother. Nobody messes with a damn Junkyard Dog. I'm Jake the Snake Roberts, Hall of Famer, and I can still kick your butt.
Mid-South, I am tired of you ripping me off and playing your stinking game with me.
New Orleans was his town, man. And my God, if you were wrestling him, brother, you were scared to death. Because you didn't know if you were going to make it out of that ring and back to the dressing room. Police usually had to carry the guys out that wrestled Dog. Because if you parked your car in that parking lot, they would destroy it. Who that gonna beat that dog? Nobody, that's who.
Before becoming one of the most popular wrestlers the South had ever seen, the Junkyard Dog was a rookie named Big Daddy Ritter, searching for his big break in Calgary, Alberta, Canada.
Well, Dog tried to get into wrestling several times, but they're all short-term deals. He wasn't on everybody's most-wanted list because then, A, he was black, and a lot of the white promoters, and they're all white, had a quota, seemingly unwritten, unstated, but it was there. And so if he didn't fit their quota, they already had a black baby face. I ain't gonna hire another one. That's sad to say. It's coarse. It's hurtful. I am Jim Ross. Been in wrestling since 1974, and along the way, I got to meet the Junkyard Dog and become friends.
It's great to have you back, Junkyard Dog.
JYD, when I first met him, seemed like he was always smiling. And his skill set was limited. But my God, the charisma and the love that he created with the fan base. But you can't coach, charisma. Or you either got it or you don't.
Despite Ritter's charisma and size, only Bill Watts, the owner and promoter of Mid-South Wrestling, decides to take a chance on the young brawler.
Cowboy was bigger than life. He was a disciplinarian. He was kind of like the head coach. You know, I never met Vince Lombardi, the famed football coach of the Packers that won multiple Super Bowls. But some of my older peers said that Watts was Vince Lombardi-like. My way or the highway. Here are the rules. There are not many of them. I expect you to adhere to them, and there's no negotiation.
Bill Watts gave him the biggest break for a black man. Let me turn this off. Hey, this is the Birdman, Coco Beware. Man, you know me flying all over the place in the wrestling business.
The Birdman, Coco Beware.
I mean, wrestling is a white man's sports. JYD, he wasn't a wrestler at all. He couldn't put you in a leg lock or a chicken wing. He don't know nothing about all that. He was a street fighter. Bill Watts gave him a chance to draw some money. And you know what? He busted Louisiana wide open.
Mid-South sports was based on realism. So athleticism, realism, making it more easy to suspend your disbelief of the art form that is pro wrestling. Watts had a rule: if you go to a bar or you get in any kind of scuffle and you get your ass whipped, you're fired. The booker for Cowboy Bill Watts is Ernie Ladd. Ernie Ladd was a philosopher. He's 6'9" and 300 pounds. So Ernie was always looking for talent. Somebody along the way told Ernie that, hey, there's this black guy, big, muscular powerhouse, kind of guy you'd like, Ernie, that you ought to take a look at. So Ernie brought Dog in, and he had a rough start because Cowboy didn't know that Dog was not a great technical wrestler.
He brought that big, fine, black specimen of a body down that aisle. Some young gals started screaming and hollering, and we would excite the crowd.
He was so statuesque, and he looked great. Turn your head, you wouldn't forget him.
Dog just clicked with the wrestling fan, so he knew how to connect with the audience. This is Mr. USA, WWE Hall of Famer, Tony Atlas.
So all you boys in the Mid-South, get ready for yourself, because I got trouble here, and I got trouble there, and I got trouble coming your way. To the Mid-South, we gon' boogie, baby.
So I have to give credit for this to Cowboy Bill Watts. Bill Watts came up with ideas. Dog was a hell of a football player. He was a hell of a street fighter. He was a brawler. So what Bill Watts did was create matches that fit Dog style.
Bill wanted Dog to do a few things really well. Clotheslines, thumps, body slams, tackles. And so those things, based on his football background, those things could be translated very easily into pro wrestling.
Ooh, power slam!
To boost Junkyard Dog's star power, Bill Watts and Ernie Ladd know they need to find the perfect villain for JYD to face in the ring.
Wait a minute! What's he doing?
There's nothing that he couldn't do in the ring, you know, if he was in the ring with the right guy. I am Ted DiBiase. Towards the end of my career, I was known in the WWE as the $1 Million Man.
Ted DiBiase. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Alfred Neely raises a hand. Something in that glove.
And the thing that I did was I always highlighted in the ring what he did best. I mean, Bill Watts coached me, the Funks coached me. They would say, Teddy, you got to basically put him in the middle of the ring and work around him and emphasize or highlight the things that you know he does very well and stay away from the things that he doesn't do so well. He had enough trust in me to know that, you know, I wasn't going to make him look bad out there. I was always going to make him look good.
The Dog just thumped him, and there's the count.
Well, you talk about an action-packed duo, they are.
We became friends. We traveled together a lot, and so much so that when we got married, JYD was my best man. That's how close we were.
Put that chains around his neck, put that music on, another one bite the dust, and he came back in with a thump. The rest of it is history.
There he goes with that big thump. He just put him about 6 feet under.
Bill Watts is the first wrestling owner, promoter, who ever featured as one of his very top stars, a black guy.
This last year has kind of been the year of the dog. I don't know if it's the Chinese year of the dog or not, but in Mid-South Wrestling, it was the year of the dog.
Bill Watts took JYD and made him the star.
When you get awards like this, it's because you're doing so many good things.
They had a very, very close relationship. Anything that Dog needed or wanted or disliked, he would never talk to the wrestlers about it. He would only talk to Bill Watts.
I don't think anyone in the business did more for an individual than Bill Watts as he looked at mentoring and helping Dog. Bill looked at him like he was family.
You always go out and give 100% for the people and for yourself.
And a lot of people were astounded that Cowboy was so friendly with a black person. And Cowboy said, I want you to know one thing. He said, my favorite color is green. And at that time, JYD was selling tickets, lots of them.
Junkyard Dog's captivating presence draws capacity crowds night after night, inspiring his fans to stop at nothing to defend their hero.
The fans not only looked up to it, they worshiped him. I'm Jim Cornette. I've been involved in a variety of ways in professional wrestling over the last 40-something years.
Because that's all you are, is a yellow dog-faced liar.
You know what he just did? He just wrote a check that his rear end won't be able to...
The downtown municipal auditorium was the Dog's house every Monday night. And the Freebirds come in and they want to take over. The Freebirds had hair cream that could remove your hair. And they said they were going to use it to take the hair away from one of their opponents. But when Junkyard Dog came in and tried to do something about it, accidentally, according to the Freebirds, the cream wound up in his eyes.
Hey, this is supposed to be a solution to remove hair. The agony he's in.
And my God, that moment right there. Freebirds were dead men.
When the word got out that JYD had been blinded by the Freebirds, and then when JYD went on television and said, my daughter, my baby daughter is about to be born, and I'll be able to hold her, but I'll never be able to see her. The people wanted to kill the Freebirds, literally.
As the highly anticipated dog collar match with JYD against Freebird Michael Hayes approaches, Dog plays his part at ringside until one fateful night when the line between fiction and reality really blurs.
JYD himself told me this story. Others have disputed it. But it sounds very typical of New Orleans and the wrestling scene at that time. They're in the downtown municipal auditorium. And Dog is sitting at ringside. He's blind, but he's in the corner. The Freebirds look around and they see Dog sitting in the corner. And all of a sudden, some guy comes over the railing and is right there at Dog's shoulder. And the guy pulls out the biggest gun he's ever seen and said, don't worry, Dog, I got him. And for 2 seconds, Dog is conflicted. Do I grab this guy's gun and save their lives, but expose that I can see? Or do I sit here and let him shoot him? And while he was conflicted, the cops came over the rail and grabbed the guy and took him down.
In our little world down there in the Mid-South, he became bigger than life. Sometimes you wonder when success comes somebody's way, is it truly a blessing or a curse?
JYD, he transcends race, color, and creed. He's everybody's champion.
Under the guidance of legendary promoter Bill Watts, the Junkyard Dog has emerged as a main event superstar in Mid-South, drawing record-breaking crowds for the company.
He was the black Hulk Hogan down there. Louisiana, Oklahoma, Arkansas. I mean, he had all those towns just sold up.
Let me tell you something, Buzzer Wuzzer. It ain't but one dog. Well, there wasn't many black wrestling stars when I broke into business. I'm WWE Hall of Famer Teddy Long.
You will go one-on-one with The Undertaker.
Dog was a big draw. He had that charisma, so he brought the blacks out, and he brought the whites out. There were whites that loved JYD too. So Bill Watts knew that was money, okay? So that's why he pushed Dog.
Oh, the crowd said, who that? Who that? Who that? Who that gonna beat that Junkyard Dog? Who that?
You know, in Mid-South, we stop at a restaurant, we stop at a gas station, people recognize us where we went.
We get a lot of letters at Mid-South asking that the Dog and the different stars can drop by and visit them. I know we got a nice letter from a kindergarten teacher in LeCompte. Well, the Junkyard Dog found time, and when word got out in that town, they had Junkyard Dog Day, and I'll tell you, it was great.
After he got his, he wanted to reach back and help others. He got more pleasure out of helping you. Talk to the kids, give them money. Very generous, not just with his money, but with his time.
You know, you get fame and stuff, get very well known, and they forget about the way that they grew up. And a lot of times I like to go back in schools and visit.
Long before the bright lights and roaring crowds, Sylvester Ritter, the man behind the Junkyard Dog, grew up in a small North Carolina town.
What a lot of people don't understand or don't know about it is it's a true rags to riches story for him. My name's Jarvis Woodburn. I'm the nephew of the Junkyard Dog. I called him Uncle Dog. That's what he was to me. This is the old one, I believe. Yeah, he grew up without a dad. My great-grandmother, which is his grandmother's the one that raised him and my mom. True Southern upbringing, family first, treat all people equally, and that's just the kind of person that he was. This is the home where Sylvester grew up, him, my mom, my grandmother, great-grandmother, great-great-grandmother. It was old school. Wake up in the middle of the night, gotta go to the bathroom, gotta do number one, you're going in the bucket. You gotta do number two, either you hold it, or you come outside and use an outhouse. There you go. There's the source of heat right there. And this was kind of like the living room area. This was a bedroom here, so it's very cramped. I mean, I remember when I was growing up, there was actually 2 beds in here. There's that wall with all of the photos and stuff. There's actually a real young picture of him over there. If these walls could talk.
But I grew up just like everybody else with nothing. I grew up hard, back down in South North Carolina, but I fought, and I'm still fighting, trying to bail on myself.
I saw him one time to give fans, he took the dog chain off his neck and gave it to a kid with a family there, and they just loved it.
He still stayed humble. He wasn't a guy that you couldn't talk to. Dog never changed. He never changed. He was the same guy each and every day.
Though fame didn't change the Junkyard Dog, life on the road and the days and weeks away from home begin to take their toll.
He would always try to come home around, especially the holidays when my mom cooks. But then after that, it's just kind of like just hanging out with the family for as long as they can before they got to get back on the road. He had a daughter, LaToya. His daughter was with us since she was 2 going on 3 years old. He loved her to death. She loved him. She was definitely a daddy's girl. He was a great father. He's just on the road all the time.
Being on the road all the time is, well, I mean, it can take a toll.
It taxes on your body, it taxes on your mind, it taxes mostly on your relationships with your children, with your wife, with your family.
You know, an average week was 1,500, 2,000 miles a week. So you're in a car a lot, and you're away from your family a lot. And sometimes a big old fat joint was your solace. Of course, for a dog, it just created more of an appetite.
We both were experimenting with drugs at the time. I remember JY showing me a jar that he had over 1,000 hits of speed in it, you know, and of course when he came south, it came with him. Yeah, he was already into the speed and into the downers and sleeping pills. I hadn't gotten into that yet, but I was soon to start.
There was a couple times on the road with him, he would always keep his pinky nail a little bit longer. You know, I'll look over, I'll see him, you know, and he was just about to do it, and he looked over at me, and he goes, "If I ever see you doing this, I'll kill you." All right. Ain't gonna tell me twice. Kind of like rock and roll. I mean, I didn't know wrestlers had groupies. Found that out. It's kind of like you see on TV with these rock stars and stuff. It was just like anywhere they went. Restaurants, bars. When you got fame like this, you said, you can actually make money. I said, what are you talking about? They said, I'm not going to sleep with them for free. I mean, some of these chicks would pay.
So I started hanging out with Dog because I got free beer, free food, and got laid. And they paid for it. We was in Little Rock, Arkansas. And I was low on money because at that time, unfortunately, I was involved with drugs. And Dog said, "I can get you some money." Okay, I got some girls coming. Oh, thank you. The door opened, and these 3 girls came in. And each one of them gave Dog $100 apiece to get laid by the wrestlers. So anyway, Dog said, he don't do no screwing. He like your feet. So he gonna play with your feet. You let him play with your feet. So I'm playing with the girl's feet. Dog getting ready to do the girl, and then we hear another knock at the door. He thought it was one of the wrestlers. It was the girl's husband. You know, he wanted to fight Dog, so he did. It didn't last long. Dog beat the hell out of him. The girl stayed.
Dog was one of the highest paid guys in pro wrestling at that time. He never made under $1,000 a week. I think he probably averaged more than like $2,000 or $3,000 a week. And in a territory that size, that was pretty extraordinary. Bill, he did nice things for him, including a car. And when he pulled up to an arena, you got noticed in a positive way.
As one of the biggest draws in the territory, the Junkyard Dog catches the eye of WWF promoter Vince McMahon. In the summer of 1984, McMahon makes JYD an offer that's more than double what he's paid under Bill Watts.
Vince McMahon was starting the national expansion that he started in 1984, and Vince was trying to suck up all the talent.
Unfortunately, the thing happened that I never believed would happen, and that was Dog walked out. He walked out on his professional savior, and he went to WWF for the cash.
How does Bill Watts feel when JYD leaves?
I'd love to have seen him when he got that phone call.
A lucrative offer from the WWF proves too strong for the Junkyard Dog to resist, as he suddenly departs Mid-South, sending shockwaves through the territory and leaving promoter Bill Watts stunned.
The big topic of conversation is the Junkyard Dog and what's happened to him, and we don't really know. We do know that he's left the Mid-South area.
When Dog left Mid-South, it broke Watts' heart, because he had never been as kind and as giving to anybody in his career. Bill went on television, had a little verbal tirade directed at Dog.
I want to comment 1 minute on the Junkyard Dog, because I watched him come to Mid-South as a youngster, and a lot of people watched him grow to become truly a superstar. But then JYD walked out, not only on Mid-South, which really hurt me personally because I considered him a great friend, he walked out on all the fans.
I mean, to see a white man cry over a black man back in the day, I saw tears come out of Bill Watts' eyes. That just hurt him bad because Bill Watts did everything he could to keep him there. And just looked like overnight, he was gone.
But in the aftermath of his departure, rumors circulate that his sudden exit from the company is motivated by factors beyond money.
Dog told me this story, the way he went to the WWF. Dog was in the bathroom, and he was in the stall. Bill Watts and Grizzly Smith, they came in the bathroom, and they didn't know Dog was in the stall. Grizzly Smith went to tell Bill Watts, he says, well, I think we're going to lose Sylvester. I hear he's going to the WWF. He's going to New York. The next thing Bill Watts said to Grizzly Smith, said, oh, don't worry about it. That nigger ain't going nowhere. Dog heard that. And so that's when he made up his mind to leave and go to Vince.
After the Junkyard Dog leaves Mid-South in the summer of 1984, Bill Watts begins a search for his replacement.
Brother, it scared him to death that his territory was going to just collapse. So desperate that immediately he tried to slide in another black superstar.
Bill made, I think, a mistake in the sense that we started trying out every African-American wrestler that we could bring in. George Wells.
You can't run this dog out. I'm here to stay, and I'm here to whip a whole lot of behind.
Brickhouse Brown.
Brickhouse Brown! And Brickhouse is styling, Joel.
They brought another guy in, called him the Snowman. I had the pleasure of wrestling him.
Jake the Snake, he tried to take me out. These thunder cookers, he can't do nothing with it.
Did not work.
I want the sucker right down here in the middle of his brain right now.
Butch Reed was a very good wrestler, but he wasn't a dog. He was a bodybuilder. He was too pretty, not that big, bad son of a bitch that people could identify with. And on and on.
So no replacing JYD?
No, none. Forget about it.
They were good guys. They tried, but replacing a legend? That's like hiring the next cowboy to replace John Wayne. How the hell are you going to do that?
The fans of the WWF welcomed JYD with open arms and thunderous applause.
This place has gone bananas.
And he certainly has his legions of fans here by the thousands. And these fans are with him all the way. He is something.
McMahon did a phenomenal job of marketing JYD when he hired him. I will give him that.
You have become one of the most popular athletes in the World Wrestling Federation, perhaps in the most shortest length of time of anyone ever to enter the ring.
You know, I've been very fortunate. A lot of help come from just understanding people and getting along with people and, make no difference what race or color it is.
Financially, it was the best move Dog ever made. He told me one time he was making 6 figures a quarter on his action figure.
That's the 3rd time my junkyard's been burgled this month.
There's only one way to protect this place, amigo. You've got to get yourself a junkyard dog.
I thought that was cool, seeing the cartoons on Saturday mornings, his action figure, the music video, all that stuff. That was pretty cool as a kid to see.
What was his tune on the album?
Grab Them Cakes. They couldn't sing for shit, though.
It's hard to start. You just go for your partners. You know what? And then you GRABTAGFCAKES. Grab them cakes.
And his dreams were all being fulfilled. He was making money. He was doing it, man. He was doing it.
Junkyard Dog and World's Heavyweight Champion, Hulk Hogan.
Longevity-wise, it's hard to stick around. Extremely competitive business. Everybody wants Hogan's spot, the spot below that. A lot of hungry guys, and hard to stick around.
As the Junkyard Dog joins a WWF roster packed with some of the biggest names in wrestling, his magnetic presence can only carry him so far. Despite his best efforts, he fails to recapture the towering heights of his glory days in Mid-South.
I don't think the industry was ready to go that route. How can I say it? With a black wrestler. That's just my opinion.
I really believe that JYD thought that Vince McMahon was going to push him the same way as Bill Watts. And it didn't happen. He figured, well, I done let Louisiana down. I done let my family down. But I done let Bill Watts down. He was just heartbreaking.
Having left the Mid-South territory behind for the promise of even greater fame, the Junkyard Dog fails to reach the same level of prominence in the WWF.
Me and Dog want to be climbing the mountaintop. We want to go to the promised land. We want to be with Hulk Hogan, brother.
They pushed some black wrestlers there, but as far as putting the black man in the money spot, no. Not at all. They didn't go there. So I got to put this black and white thing together all the time, because that's the only way I see it.
From 1980 to, I would say, 86, 80% of the top wrestlers were minorities in the Vince Sr. area. Vince McMahon Sr. figured that you have to have a person to represent every nationality of people, and that was his idea. Pedro Morales, Bruno Sammartino, Rocky Johnson, the Wild Samoan, Mr. Fuji, Bob Backlund. In that whole list, I named how many white people? 1.
But right now, let's begin the festivities. Without further ado, let's go up the ringside.
When Vince Jr. took over, where there wasn't as many minorities on top, he came with the Hulk Hogan, Ronnie Piper, Bret Hart. Well, he had a pecking order for Dog. He needed a black wrestler, but that he had to push the Caucasian wrestler. It's not racism. It was a business decision. He wanted to get the white fans to come more.
Vince McMahon didn't use him like Bill did. I wish he had, because if he'd have opened that door, I think he could have been one of the biggest stars in the WWE.
Do I think it affected him? Absolutely. And I think that was when the drugs got really bad.
Dog started off with pot, and that led to cocaine. He just smoked it. Yeah, y'all call it crack now.
Once he got into the coke, and the coke took him, he had to have it every day. JYD, he didn't care where he was at, he'd just pull it out and do it. On airplanes and everything, man.
He got me in trouble one time. They were doing a TNT thing that Vince used to do. He said, I want you to make sure he get there. They got a Lear jet for him, the nice jet. So when Dog landed, they got the guy with the limousine to pick us up at the airport. Dog had a limousine job to go in the ghettos to get some dope. So they driving around. Dog, we gotta get to the building, Dog. He found somebody selling him his dope. The limousine driver had no idea what was going on. So Dog asked, is it okay I smoke? The limousine driver, he thought me a cigarette. The Dog said, yeah. He take out his crack pipe and started smoking crack and go, I'm gonna still looking at this dog like this. He don't know what the hell to do. We tried to get Dog there, but we late, which means I missed my match. Dog forgot one thing that Thunderbolt Patterson tried to teach all of us black wrestlers. Thunderbolt used to always say, you can't do what the white man do and keep your job.
By the late 1980s, the Junkyard Dog is consumed by a devastating drug addiction, and its consequences are felt far beyond the squared circle.
He didn't look good. He would talk, but he wasn't that cheerful dog that we knew. He just wasn't the same person. He didn't care what happened. He didn't care at all. I mean, he just...
Oh my God, yeah, he was out of control. I remember him sitting there in Madison Square Garden and loading a pipe up and hitting it right in front of everybody. JY, what are you doing, man? He goes, they don't even know what they don't even know what it is. You know, he was just burnt.
Well, yeah, the dog came out of this hiding place, started to begin to move up and down that ladder once again. And like I said time and time again, every dog needs a bone to chew on.
Of course, he had a drug problem. Everybody was taking drugs back then. I can't throw no stones. A to Z. I just never had that addictive type personality. But Dog, he struggled with that. He sank into it. It was more and more, and, you know, there was no talking him out of it.
Why is he let go from the WWF?
No shows, the way I understood it.
Vince didn't care what you did, because drugs help you to go. But you miss shows, you scare them when you do that.
I didn't have no idea that he was leaving or anything like that. And that's the way the wrestling business, it was like that. They didn't give you 2 weeks notice, just tell you, hey, leave.
When a guy can't go buy groceries, and you don't have any money, and you haven't seen your family, it's disheartening. He definitely had a great soul. If JYD's story isn't a cautionary tale, then people aren't paying attention.
Fired from the WWF and struggling to make ends meet, JYD turns to the independent circuit, performing in small high school gyms for diminishing crowds. After hitting rock bottom, JYD's fortunes change with an offer to join World Championship Wrestling, where his old friend and mentor Bill Watts is now in charge.
And Bill Watts came in and he knew that he could make his mark if he recaptured that black superstar.
He was likable as hell. Everybody there was happy to try to resurrect him, shall we say. I knew that his days of working on the top were over. He didn't know that. He didn't seem like he wanted to admit it, but you ain't the same guy. And you look bloated. You're not JYD right now. And at some point, you hold out hope to somebody that you love and respect. Well, they'll see the light. But let me tell you something. As my daddy would say, they got to carry their share of the water.
I get mad when I pull up stories about the first thing people say, drugs this, drugs that. You got a guy that came from nothing. They pulled him out of that environment, give him all this money. I'm not making excuses, but yeah, he did drugs. Will be. I mean, everybody got demons.
I'm pretty sure the last time I seen him was like 1995, and I came in and he was just mumbling. That was about it, man. And I went back to where he was sitting. They said, he's in the ring. I went out to watch. They were ringing the bell. It was over. It lasted about 2 minutes. That's all he gave him. And he came back, grabbed his money, and walked out the door. Didn't say bye, didn't say hi, didn't say nothing, man. And I know exactly where he was at. He was wanting to get outside so he could get high again. I've been there. I've been there.
If he had his drug fix, he was perfectly happy to go into isolation until he needed the money. Then he'd work a show for some independent promoter. for the cash.
You see, the pain that you get from the cocaine is because you look in the mirror every now and then, a moment of clarity, and you'll look at yourself and you'll see just how far down you've gone. That's painful. And it's also shameful. And those two things, man, will kill you.
In just over a decade, JYD goes from headlining the Superdome to working a part-time job at a local Walmart.
Dog is used to being treated a certain way for a long period of time, from his football career to his wrestling career. And then all of a sudden, all that is taken away from him. So you have to get used to being treated like shit, pretty much. When I hit that spot, I tried to commit suicide. I was homeless for a year and a half. I slept in the park. Didn't shower or bathe or brush my teeth or comb my hair for a year and a half. That right before Soft December. So Dog was going through the same thing. He didn't save his money. Dog was very careless with money. He was making $8,000, $10,000 a week. It just came so easy to him, and all of us felt the same way, not just Dog, that it would never end. We figured this would never end, that we always gonna be making money. We always gonna be big stars. This would never end.
So the phone rings one day, and I get a call from JYD. I hadn't talked to him in quite a while, and he knows by now that, you know, I've had this change in my life and that I'm out not only doing school assemblies, but I'm speaking in churches. If you're a wrestling fan, you may have remembered the $1 Million Man. How many in this room would say you remember that guy? Yeah! And he says, I want you to encourage those kids you're talking to not to do what I did. And I was just like, wow. I did what he asked me to do. That sin, that one that goes away for a week or a month and then it rears its ugly head and it's back. Or maybe even worse, it's there every day. Drugs, alcohol, addiction. But here's a guy who was the biggest name and succumbed to drugs. And of course, that was probably one of the last conversations we had.
The last time he came home was for his daughter's graduation. He was coming from Mississippi.
Dog was real proud of his daughter. He wanted to make sure that he was at his daughter's graduation because, I mean, she would want him there too. I mean, you got to feel real proud if your dad is the junkyard dog and he walks into your graduation. It don't get no better than that. So he was certainly determined to get there.
From where he was living at in Mississippi to Charlotte, North Carolina is about a 9-hour drive one way. He misses the graduation. We're all at my mom and dad's house. He shows up. Of course, he apologizes, you know, that he was late. He holds my son for the first time. My son was 6 months old, but he looks like a little miniature baby doll in his hand. And he held him for a while, but that was the last family photo taken of him. And then later on, you know, he said, I'm gonna get back on the road. So I met him at this gas station, and there's something on the driver's side door. I'm like, dude, what's that? He goes, puke. What, she had a long night last night. So I didn't think nothing else about it. And I said, you gonna drive all the way back home? You're not gonna pull over to sleep or anything? So, nah, I'm just gonna go ahead and drive on, you know, make it straight home. I didn't know that was gonna be the last conversation I had with him, though.
On June 1st, 1998, after leaving a celebration of his daughter's high school graduation, the Junkyard Dog sets out on the long and fateful journey home.
We talked 10, 15 minutes right before he's getting ready to go. He's done gassing up and everything, and he said, well, man, I said, when you come back down? He said, man, I'll be back on the 4th. Be back on the 4th. I said, all right, well, cool, man, I'll see you then. You know, dapped each other up. He gets in the car and he drives away. I go home. The next day, I get the call at work, and it's my mom, and she's, you know, very upset, and she said, Sylvester got killed last night. I was like, wait, what? And she rambles something, and I could barely make it out. I just heard car, she got killed, and she hangs up the phone. And according to the authorities, that accident happened that morning. So he drove all through the night, all night long. He fell asleep. There was no skid marks. You could see where the car veered off the road and it flipped several times. There's no way he could have been wearing his seatbelt because he was too damn big for that seatbelt. He shouldn't have been in that car anyway. And it was head trauma, according to the autopsy.
A lot of time when you're on the drugs, you know, you're up 3 or 4 days. Sometimes you don't get no rest until sometime the body just says, hey, I don't want no more, I'm shutting down. So that's what the body has to do to you for you to really go get rest. So I think Dog just hadn't had no rest and the body just shut down.
It broke my heart, and I'm sure it broke the world's heart. He loved Ted DiBiase. They was like brothers, and I know it broke Ted's heart.
I was very hopeful then that he was going to get better. The next thing I know, he's had a car wreck.
How did you learn about his passing?
I got a phone call when he had the car wreck. To tell you the truth, I was happy for him. Because I was still caught in the trenches. And I knew that he had escaped. I knew that the pain was over.
I started crying because I realized I never got to tell him how much I loved him. The period of time I was around him, he was such a dynamite human being. The fact of how we ended our relationship was not near as important as the time we spent together. JYD was a neat, special person. And then you also see the terrible battle that's fought when guys get something that gets a hold of them that they can't whip.
All right, so this is his grave site here. One of his last wrestling pictures. And just below him, this is his daughter. What it was a ruptured heart valve. It actually literally exploded. There was nothing they could have done anyway. And then she passed away a few minutes after that. And she was 31 years old. My mom comes, as you can see, with flowers and everything. Never misses a holiday, birthday. My mom finds it very difficult to talk about Sylvester because she was so close to him and she raised LaToya as her daughter. It's just traumatic for her to go back down memory lane, so to speak. I think it just opens up too many wounds that probably hadn't fully healed. He's a trailblazer, man. I'm sure a lot of those young guys appreciate the path that you laid for him.
Yes, he did. He paved the way for all of us. I mean, anytime he came out, you always remember JYD, and you will remember him when you left that arena that night. So Dog's legacy is he's just one of the greatest black stars in pro wrestling.
JYD did more to create awareness and acceptance within the closed world, very prejudiced world of pro wrestling. He stepped to the front of the line, and he stayed in the front of the line for many, many years. The charisma was natural and real, organic, and that's what separated him from the pack.
Oh, the crowd saying, who that? Who that? Who that gonna beat that Junkyard Dog? Who that? This guy is a true hero.
So I prefer to remember him in the happier days and not anything else. He broke the barriers.
I mean, the fans are just all over you, Dog.
It gets pretty hectic at times, but I enjoy it, man. I love it. But see, in this business, I let them get close to me.
He always had a moment for a kid or a grown-up. He had that charisma that made him a god to those that loved him, and there were so many people that loved him, black and white.
Yeah, it's hard to find anybody say something bad about JYD. He was a stand-up guy in a business where there's not a whole lot of stand-up guys.
I'm honored to introduce Sylvester Ritter, the Junkyard Dog, the Wrestling Hall of Fame.
I'm hoping that he's remembered for good stuff that he did in the industry.
LaToya Ritter will be the recipient of the award for her dad.
While I'm standing here, it's important to me, and I know it would be important to him, to introduce his sister, Christine Woodburn. He called her Big Red.
I didn't get to speak to JYD very much at the end, but again, that last conversation, when he said, tell my story, when you're talking to those kids, that told me, I said, the guy that I knew is back.
Have you ever heard of a wrestler so talented that legends believed he could have been a superstar, yet so haunted by his personal battles that his name almost disappeared from wrestling history? In an industry built on larger-than-life heroes and unforgettable villains, Chris Colt became something far more tragic, a man whose greatest opponent was never inside the wrestling ring. His story isn't just about professional wrestling, it's about fame, identity, addiction, and the devastating cost of trying to survive in a world that demanded you hide who you truly were. Today we're diving deep into Dark Side of the Ring Season 5, Episode 6, Chris Colt. Welcome to my nightmare. To uncover the remarkable rise and heartbreaking fall of one of wrestling's most fascinating forgotten figures. Before we begin, it's important to remember that this video discusses historical events involving addiction, discrimination, illness, and death. The goal is to examine these events respectfully and understand the real human story behind them, while honoring the people whose lives were affected. Professional wrestling during the 1970s and early 1980s was unlike the global entertainment machine fans know today. Long before billion-dollar television deals and social media transformed the business, wrestling operated through a system of regional territories spread across North America. Every territory had its own stars, promoters, and loyal audiences. Wrestlers spent countless hours driving from town to town, performing night after night, while constantly trying to impress promoters who controlled the next opportunity. Success required more than athletic ability. It demanded charisma, toughness, creativity, and an almost unbelievable level of mental endurance. Into that world stepped Chris Colt. Even if you've followed wrestling for decades, there's a good chance you've never heard his name. That's exactly why his story is so compelling. Colt wasn't forgotten because he lacked talent. In fact, many people who worked alongside him believed the complete opposite. They saw someone with natural charisma, an impressive physique, and a personality capable of captivating an audience the moment he walked through the curtain. He had confidence, style, and an ability to make fans react whether they loved him or hated him. Those qualities are incredibly difficult to teach. Wrestling trainers can improve technique, but genuine charisma is something very few performers possess. Chris Colt seemed to have it naturally. What made him even more unique was his willingness to reinvent himself. Throughout his career, Colt experimented with different looks, characters, and presentation styles. At a time when many wrestlers relied on one established gimmick for years, he constantly searched for ways to stand out. Some promoters admired that creativity. Others viewed it as unpredictability. In wrestling, being memorable is valuable, but being considered unreliable can quickly become a career-ending reputation. Unfortunately for Colt, unpredictability slowly became one of the defining themes of his life. Dark Side of the Ring paints a picture of someone who lived at full speed. Friends and colleagues describe him as intelligent, funny, charming, and endlessly entertaining. But beneath that charisma existed struggles that few people truly understood. His life increasingly became a series of emotional highs and devastating lows. One of the biggest challenges Colt faced had nothing to do with wrestling itself. He was a gay man working in an industry where masculinity was often exaggerated and rigid expectations dominated the locker room. During that era, openly identifying as gay could destroy a wrestling career almost overnight. Prejudice was widespread throughout much of society, and professional wrestling reflected many of those same attitudes. For someone trying to build a career, revealing such a personal truth carried enormous professional risks. Because of that environment, Colt lived much of his life behind carefully constructed walls. He wasn't simply performing inside the wrestling ring. He was performing in everyday life as well, constantly managing what people knew about him and what remained hidden. It's difficult to imagine the emotional weight of maintaining that kind of secrecy year after year. Every new territory meant meeting new coworkers. Every interview meant carefully choosing words. Every friendship required deciding how much of himself he could safely reveal. The documentary suggests that this constant pressure became another burden added to an already complicated life. As the years passed, another destructive force entered the picture: substance abuse. The wrestling business of that period was physically brutal. Pain was considered part of the job. Many performers relied on alcohol or drugs to cope with injuries, stress, exhaustion, and the relentless travel schedule. While every wrestler's experience was different, addiction became an unfortunate reality for many people throughout the industry. Chris Colt was no exception. Accounts from people who knew him describe increasingly erratic behavior. Stories circulated about excessive drug use, unpredictable decisions, and incidents that left promoters questioning whether they could depend on him. Some stories became almost legendary, passed around wrestling circles for years. While it's important to recognize that memories can become exaggerated over time, the overall pattern remains consistent. Colt's struggles were becoming impossible to ignore. This created a painful contradiction. When he was focused and healthy, many believed he possessed the ability to become a major attraction. But wrestling is built on consistency. Promoters need performers who arrive on time, complete scheduled appearances, and represent their companies professionally. Even extraordinary talent can be overshadowed if reliability becomes uncertain. As opportunities disappeared, the downward spiral accelerated. The episode also explores another aspect of Colt's life that remained largely hidden from wrestling audiences for years. During periods when wrestling work became inconsistent, he sought income elsewhere, including appearances in adult films under different names. In today's world, conversations surrounding sexuality and personal identity are often more open than they were decades ago. At that time, however, such work carried significant social stigma and could have permanently damaged a wrestler's career if widely known. For Colt, this wasn't simply about making controversial choices. It reflected the complicated daily of someone trying to survive financially while navigating a society that often left him with limited opportunities. That context matters. Looking back through modern eyes, it's easy to judge individual decisions without understanding the environment in which they were made. Dark Side of the Ring encourages viewers to see the broader picture, a man facing multiple forms of pressure simultaneously, each one making the others even harder to overcome. One of the documentary's greatest strengths is that it refuses to reduce Chris Colt to a collection of shocking headlines. Instead, it introduces viewers to family members, friends, historians, and wrestling personalities who remember not only the chaos, but also the kindness. They describe someone who could light up a room with humor, inspire people with his creativity, and leave a lasting impression on almost everyone he met. That's what makes this story especially heartbreaking. The more you learn about Chris Colt, the more you realize this isn't simply the story of another wrestler whose career went off track. It's the story of extraordinary potential repeatedly colliding with personal pain. And unfortunately, the darkest chapter of his life was still ahead. As his addiction worsened, his professional opportunities became increasingly scarce. Friends who once saw limitless promise began watching someone they cared about slip further away. The wrestling world moved on to its next generation of stars, while Chris Colt found himself fighting battles that could no longer be solved with talent alone. By the late 1980s, the wrestling industry was changing rapidly. Regional territories that had once provided steady work for countless wrestlers were disappearing as national promotions expanded their reach. Competition became fiercer than ever, and only a small percentage of performers managed to secure consistent contracts. For someone already struggling with addiction, financial instability, and personal challenges, those changes made survival even more difficult. Chris Colt was one of the many talented wrestlers caught in that transition. But unlike others, he was carrying burdens that extended far beyond the business itself. As Dark Side of the Ring explains, Colt's professional opportunities continued to shrink. Promoters who had once admired his charisma became increasingly hesitant to book him. Wrestling is an industry built on trust. A promoter needs confidence that a performer will arrive on time, be physically able to compete, and work safely with opponents. When concerns about reliability begin to outweigh talent, opportunities quickly disappear. For Chris Colt, this became a devastating cycle. Fewer bookings meant less income. Less income created greater stress. Greater stress often made addiction even harder to overcome. Each problem fed into the next, until escaping that cycle became incredibly difficult. One of the most powerful aspects of this episode is that it never suggests there was a single reason Chris Colt's life unraveled. Instead, it shows how multiple factors slowly collided over many years. Addiction alone didn't define his story. Neither did discrimination, financial hardship, or mental health struggles. It was the combination of all these pressures that gradually overwhelmed someone who had once seemed destined for far greater success. As viewers, it's tempting to search for one turning point, the moment when everything changed. But real life is rarely that simple. Most tragedies develop gradually, through hundreds of small setbacks, missed opportunities, difficult decisions, and circumstances that become harder to reverse with time. The documentary also reminds us that wrestling fans often only see what happens inside the ring. They cheer the entrances, celebrate championship victories, and remember unforgettable rivalries. What they don't see are the lonely hotel rooms, endless road trips, chronic pain, financial uncertainty, and emotional pressure that many performers experience behind the scenes. Chris Colt's life is a powerful example of that hidden reality. As the years passed, he became increasingly isolated from the wrestling world that had once offered him hope. Friends remembered seeing flashes of the same funny, intelligent, and charismatic man they had always known, but those moments became less frequent. The person who could once command an audience now found himself struggling simply to keep his own life together. The episode also explores the devastating impact of the AIDS epidemic during the 1980s and early 1990s. At that time, fear and misinformation were widespread. Many people living with HIV or AIDS faced enormous stigma in addition to their medical challenges. Public understanding was limited, and countless individuals suffered discrimination alongside serious illness. According to those interviewed in the documentary, Chris Colt's health continued to decline during this period. His personal struggles, combined with addiction and deteriorating physical condition, made rebuilding his life increasingly difficult. Rather than receiving widespread support, he often found himself alone. Eventually, reports indicate that Colt experienced periods of homelessness, a heartbreaking reality for someone who had once entertained thousands of fans across North America. It's one of the most painful contrasts presented in the episode. The same performer who once stood beneath bright arena lights was now living largely out of public view, his contributions to wrestling fading from memory while he fought battles that few people even knew existed. Chris Colt died in 1995, at only 45 years old. His passing marked the end of a life filled with enormous promise, unforgettable charisma, and profound personal hardship. While the exact details surrounding his final years remain incomplete, the documentary makes one thing abundantly clear. This was not simply the story of a wrestler who failed. It was the story of a human being who faced extraordinary challenges during a period when understanding, acceptance, and support were often painfully limited. That perspective is what separates this episode from many other wrestling documentaries. Instead of focusing primarily on backstage scandals or shocking controversies, Dark Side of the Ring asks viewers to look beyond the headlines. It encourages us to see Chris Colt not as a cautionary tale defined by addiction or controversy, but as a gifted performer whose life reflected many of the social realities of his era. One of the episode's greatest strengths is its balance. It doesn't ignore Colt's mistakes, nor does it excuse them. Addiction caused real consequences. His behavior sometimes damaged relationships and professional opportunities. Those facts remain part of his story. At the same time, the documentary refuses to reduce him to those mistakes alone. Friends, family members, wrestling historians, and colleagues remember someone who could be generous, creative, hilarious, and deeply compassionate. They describe a man who loved entertaining audiences and who possessed a natural ability to connect with people when he was at his best. Those memories matter because they remind us that every public figure is more complicated than a list of career highlights or personal failures. In many ways, Chris Colt's story also reflects how much society has changed. Today's wrestling industry is far from perfect, but conversations surrounding mental health, addiction recovery, and LGBTQ+ inclusion are far more common than they were during Colt's career. More organizations now recognize the importance of providing support systems for performers dealing with personal challenges. While progress is ongoing, it's difficult to imagine Chris Colt receiving exactly the same response if he were beginning his career today. That doesn't erase what happened, but it highlights why remembering stories like his remains important. History isn't valuable simply because it tells us what happened. It's valuable because it helps us understand why those events happened and what lessons can be learned moving forward. Watching this episode, it's impossible not to wonder what Chris Colt might have accomplished under different circumstances. With his charisma, confidence, and undeniable talent, could he have become a nationally recognized star? Could better support, greater acceptance, or earlier treatment have changed the course of his life? No documentary can answer those questions with certainty, but asking them reminds us that behind every wrestling persona is a real person navigating challenges that audiences rarely see. Ultimately, Chris Colt, Welcome to My Nightmare, is less about professional wrestling than it is about resilience, identity, and compassion. It tells the story of a man who dreamed of becoming a star, but found himself fighting battles that no championship could solve. It reminds us that talent alone cannot overcome addiction, prejudice, or isolation without meaningful support. For wrestling fans, this episode shines a light on one of the industry's most overlooked figures. For everyone else, it serves as a powerful reminder that success and suffering can exist side by side, often hidden behind a smile, a performance, or a larger-than-life character. Chris Colt may never have reached the level of fame enjoyed by wrestling's biggest icons, but perhaps that's exactly why his story deserves to be remembered. It gives a voice to someone history nearly forgot, and challenges us to see the human being behind the performer. If there's one lasting message from this episode, it's this. Every legend has a story. Every performer carries unseen struggles. And sometimes the most important stories in wrestling aren't about championships or victories. They're about the people whose lives remind us why empathy matters. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Dark Side of the Ring, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more wrestling documentaries and analysis, and let me know in the comments which episode you'd like us to explore next. Wrestling history is filled with incredible stories, but the ones that stay with us the longest are often the ones that reveal the very human lives behind the spotlight. Until next time, thanks for watching, and take care.